On one occasion when Jesus was going to the house of a leader of the Pharisees to eat a meal on the Sabbath, they were watching him closely. When he noticed how the guests chose the places of honor, he told them a parable. When you're invited by someone to a wedding banquet, do not sit down at the place of honor, in case someone more distinguished than you has been invited by your host. And the host who invited both of you may come and say to you, give this person your place. And then in disgrace you would start to take the lowest place. But when you are invited, go and sit down at the lowest place, so that when your host comes, he may say to you, friend, move up higher. Then you will be honored in the presence of all who sit at the table with you. For all who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. He said also to the one who had invited him, when you give a luncheon or a dinner, do not invite your friends or your brothers or your relatives or rich neighbors, in case they may invite you in return, and you would be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind, and you will be blessed, because they cannot repay you, for you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise you. Be our guest. Be our guest. Put our service to the test. Tie your napkin around your neck, and we'll provide all the rest. Soup du jour, hot hors d'oeuvres. How's the rest go? Why we live to serve. Try the gray stuff. It's delicious. Don't believe us? Ask the dishes. Be our guest. Be our guest. You know, it would be hard to find anyone in this room who has not seen that wonderful story known as Beauty and the Beast. It's a wonderful film. It was presented back in 1991. I think 3 years later, 1994, it became a Broadway musical. And then not long ago, you may recall in 2017, it was made into a live action film. The plot is simple. I won't go too far into it because you already know it. But basically, we see a prince who was transformed into a beast because he cast away an old hag, a lady who came at the wedding banquet to receive a favor or blessing. And because he turned her away, not only was he transformed into this beastly creature, but all of his loyal subjects were turned into clocks and furniture and dishes. The moral, I guess, of this story is that we need to be careful of those who we turn away, because we don't want to lose that precious thing that we have been given. The beast could only reverse the curse when he found true love. Does the beast still alive today? Does it still live in our midst? Do we see this sense of captivity of people that serve, and each and every time they wonder if they will ever be freed? Today, we have not only this story before us, but it unfolds furthermore into our lessons. And in the lessons today, we see the creation of the beast as those who turn away from God. When God comes to visit and we turn him away, and what happens next? Well, the plot gets thicker, doesn't it? Have you ever thought about some of these things that go along with this story? I think that at the heart of it, we learn the importance of also what it means to serve others. The beast seems to be intent on only being served. And Lord knows we have enough people in our world today that live in that accordance. Some people just lord it over others and expect that everyone was intention and purpose to serve them. We dare not fall into that trap. Have you ever thought about the servants that we have today? I mean, we come here today to love and to serve the Lord. But we also come today to learn how to love and serve one another, to give out of our own abundance, and to assist others in their time of need. Think about a common situation where I think we would all find appreciation for those who serve us. Let's take, for example, restaurants. I think a good amount of us, if not all of us, have been out to eat on occasion. And when we go to a restaurant, there's usually someone that greets us at the door, a host or a hostess, and they look at us and say, "Be our guest." And they bring you to your table. They sit you down. You may have to tie your own napkin around your neck, but they go down the menu and they tell you what specials are being offered today. And they give you a sense of hospitality. Hospitality that leads into the course to which you are asking for in advance, which is on the menu. To be cared for begins with hospitality. Hospitality goes before something much greater, which is care. And care, which goes into something even greater, which is love. So you're sitting at your table with your guests. Others are doing the same thing at their tables. And it's amazing how that next person that comes along is so important to make the experience worthwhile. You have a waiter or a waitress. And when they come over to you, they ask you how you're doing. They might ask you where you're from. And you get the sense that they really love you being there. It's almost like they're honored that you came to be in front of them. Of course, underneath the plot, we understand they're trying to earn a living and they're trying to make a good presentation so that we will show generosity back to them. But earnestly, I think that the people that I've seen in most restaurants, they're willing to serve because they want you to have a good experience. And so they ask you, do you want something to drink? They may even ask you if you want a hot hors d'oeuvre or some of that gray stuff that seems to be quite delicious. And as the night goes on, you and your company will express your gratitude in the form of giving something back to that waiter or that waitress in exchange for the hospitality that they showed you. But is it just lip service when they say, "Why, my life is intent on serving you"? Do you think they're just saying that, or do you think they actually mean that? I mean, these people are honestly working. They work probably a 10-hour day. And when they go home, I would imagine that they take off their shoes like the rest of us. They rub their sore feet. They look at their earnings. And what they may say at the end of it is like, bills got to be paid, and yet I have to return and do it all over again. How does that person, the servant mentality, find within itself that expression of goodwill for each and every new face by saying, "Be my guest"? How often do we use that expression? Be my guest. Now, the good thing, I would think, for people who worked in restaurants would be that you get at least one day off. Unless you own a restaurant, then you get no days off. But if you are in that thought, you're thinking, at least I get one day off. And you can just cash out, don't do anything, go to the beach, do whatever you want to do. And maybe you may want an exchange where you go out and you hope that somebody will serve you. And they will say the same thing. And that will give you great assurance that this whole process of hospitality is at work. But as we go forward in thinking about the importance of being a servant, we come to the text for today and a special story to which is unfolding in front of our eyes. There before us, not dancing dishes, not things hanging from the chandelier, but instead we do have a wedding banquet that is presented to us in the Gospel of St. Luke. It's a remarkable story. Here we see Jesus invited to the wedding banquet of a ruler, a powerful person. And who are the other guests that are also invited to this banquet? Now, if any of you have never planned a wedding before, you know that one of the most important things is the guest list. And when you get the people that actually commit to coming to your wedding, you start to begin, where will they sit? Where will be the place of honor? Who knows so-and-so, and what's the company? And maybe we want to separate those two. You know, you got all those things you're thinking about so that the occasion will be a wonderful, lovely, and beautiful experience remembered by all. And as much as I want to subscribe to that, I don't know if you read the gospel as I did, but there is something afoul. There is a beast in the midst of this banquet. Has anyone anyone come to that same determination? Well, let's walk through this. In the gospel, Jesus is invited. It doesn't say his disciples are invited, but the ruler of this area, this is probably Jerusalem. There are Pharisees. Pharisees were the ruling class, politically, religiously, and it goes further to indicate that they were lawyers. Now, Pharisees were lawyers. Does that seem strange for anybody that holds political office today? Absolutely not. We're akin to this. We understand this as a relationship. But what is remarkable and makes me most inquisitive, why was Jesus invited to this guest list? Isn't this Joseph's son, Mary's son, a carpenter? Why did he get invited to the wedding banquet? Is it possible that his namesake and his deeds and his actions preceded him, and that perhaps they just wanted to meet this amazing individual that has risen to power in so many ways? Do you think that's what it is? Jesus is going to tell us everything with the parable of the seating chart. Who sits where is most important, and who the guests are equally important. Jesus is looking around, and as people are gathering, there might be servants going around with some soup du jour or some hot hors d'oeuvres, and they're asking people to feel at home and to be their guests. Strikingly, this is happening on the Sabbath, when it was commanded you could not work on the Sabbath. Just let that sit there for a second. Wasn't it just last week that Jesus healed the paralytic woman of 18 years, and it was the same people that accused Jesus of working on the Sabbath? And now, just tiptoe a chapter later, we find another Sabbath experience, another one which is now around a wedding banquet of a very official, powerful individual surrounded by powerful people that are accustomed to being served their entire lives. And Jesus, a servant heart individual, is coming to this experience as an honored guest. Does that not sound unusual to anybody? It's very possible that the beast was leading the beauty to a great trap. The more and more I read the context of the scripture, it seems to make sense. Jesus tells a parable, but he precedes it with asking a question to a great number of lawyers who were in the midst. He knows what is on their mind. He knows why he was invited, because they wanted him to recommit the crime. With the ruler, he could place judgment immediately. He was being set up. Jesus sees it all. He looks at them and he just asks them the question. While, the plot thickens here, an individual comes hobbling in. I don't know why they excise that out of today's gospel, but verses 2 to 6 says it's a man with dropsy, which means a man of gout. His feet were sore. He could barely get around. He walks into the occasion. I've got so much to unpack on this. Jesus sees this man coming to him. We can imagine that the guest list was pretty extreme. There were a lot of people there. He comes to Jesus. They heard he healed someone on the Sabbath last week. Are you seeing where this is all going? They're leading him to the trap. They're giving him the bait. They're looking for him to exercise an act of work on the Sabbath. As Moses was commanded by God, keep the Sabbath day holy. They interpreted that to mean no work. Ironically, they had all their servants working on that day. So, the point is, they didn't arrest them, they didn't accuse them, but here's Jesus. They're expecting him to lay hands on the man, pray over him, anoint him, dance around him, whatever. They didn't believe he was a miracle worker. They just wanted to get him out of the way. Is it against the law to heal somebody on the Sabbath? I think the greatest miracle of this event is that all the attorneys, no offense, were speechless. Now, these are high-powered attorneys. These are people that rule Israel. They were enmeshed politically with Rome. And they were silent and could not answer that question. And as they were silent, Jesus healed immediately in their presence the man with dropsy. How does a man who can barely walk, who is infirm, a degenerate, who is never served by anybody and doesn't have the wherewithal, the physical ability to serve others, how does a man like that get through the front door, past the guards, past everybody who are watching the guest list and not letting anybody slip in? How does that man slip into that room at that moment? I think it's very clear. Prove me wrong. But the beast has spoken. He is looking to devour the beauty and the love of God who they invited to trap in their midst. The beast demands love, but the beauty lives to serve love. How did Jesus heal? He began with accepting hospitality. He gave hospitality. That showed he cared. And through his caring, and because he's God, he healed the man who is infirm. The miracle should stand on its own merit. But as we know in the future context of Holy Scripture, they would still find a way to accuse him and to sentence him to death. But I love the parable because he says, if you're invited to a wedding banquet, do not assume that you are the person of honor. You go and you sit over by the kids' table. You sit by the door. I don't even know if they had a placard, a place card for Jesus of Nazareth at that event. I think they were ready just to make a spontaneous arrest, get them out of there, and let's start drinking and eating. That's what I think they were planning. And Jesus foiled every bit of it. And he made it even worse for the father of the bride or the groom, we don't know. As he was already prepared to lay judgment and get on with the festivities, everyone is now stumped, speechless. They don't know what to do because he gives them this parable that it will be the lowly who will be exalted and the exalted who will be lowly. The people of power and the people that demand to be served, who demand your love and your affection and your worship of them, they will not rest. These people could not rest because they knew that they were guilty. The worst sin of all, they were not loving others as God loved them. That was the only two commands that Jesus gave us, to love God and to love each other. And they were violating both. There are so many reasons why these people in that room with the ruler, the Pharisees, all the attorneys, all the people that were there, there's no reason why they could not bow down and worship God at that precise moment. The dishes should have been flying around the room and dancing and singing. Should have had that little duster thing, swimming around. Should have been the best music and everything. Here is the Son of God. But instead it turned dark. The beast takes the light out of the room because it demands the light to be only on itself. Dearly beloved, who is the beast today? Does the beast belong to someone we point our fingers to in the papers and the news, and it's those people? We can reverse the curse of Adam when we accept the love of Christ, so that he teaches us what it truly means to love and to serve others. When we place ourselves in a lowly place, we're able to lift people up. And this is where Christ wants us. He is preparing us for a wedding banquet. And when we get there, I think it's best that we find the back line to begin. Today, Jesus says, I can do anything and all things. I can heal you. I can restore you. I can bring you to that place of beauty. But to do so, you may have to tie your own napkin around your neck so that he can handle all the rest. But he continues to say the same words. Be my guest. Be my guest. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.